Okay, it's 7:35. Good evening, everyone, to the weekly huddle. This is our 30th session on weekly huddle. We've been doing this session for more than 6 months now. For all the new joinees, weekly huddle is an interactive session where we try to discuss about healthcare. We choose a clinical topic in relation to healthcare and we tend to discuss around that topic, trying essentially to know about practice patterns and the thought process and essentially sharing our thoughts. And the same thing that we normally do in our hospitals, a canteen discussion or a corridor discussion. The same thing we are trying to bring this in a more organized format. That is the idea where we brought up this weekly huddle program, and we've been doing this program for more than 6 months now. And today is our 30th session, where we are discussing about post MI cardiac rehabilitation. So huddle is not a speaker and guest model. It's more of an interactive session. We usually start with a clinical case and we take inputs and as a courtesy, we expect others to wait for the other participant to complete. And if you have anything to share, please raise your hand or wait for the other speaker to finish. So we'll start with today's session is about post MI cardiac rehabilitation. And for our discussion to be more productive or to get more insight, we have a few guests today whom we have invited. We have Dr. Trishila, who is a physiotherapist working with us at Care Hospital, Banjara Hills. We have Dr. Priya, who also joined us in previous sessions, who is runs her own setup at Chennai, and she is predominantly focuses on preventive cardiology. We have Dr. Vijay Batina, who is chief physiotherapist working at Uchwas Rehabilitation Center at Jubilee Hills, Hyderabad. Along with him is uh, what do you call Taranya Setupati, who is a consultant rehabilitation psychologist who is working with Dr. Vijay at Uchwas Rehabilitation Center, Hyderabad. So, welcome all four of you for joining us the weekly huddle. We normally start with a clinical case discussion. So, I usually take a opinion from my co-host Anup and then probably move forward. Anup currently is in Delhi, who went there to Proctor Tower case. I don't know whether he's available. Anup, are you able to hear me and can you share your thoughts?
Yes, I am available. It's just that in my background you will hear a lot of traffic noise, but I am okay to talk. No problem.
All right, all right. So we'll get started. So this is about a 50-year-old male smoker occasionally and occasionally consumes alcohol who was diagnosed to be having diabetes for the last 2 years and also hypertension and who is taking some pills for them. We're not sure about how well they are controlled. And he comes with an severe onset chest pain and he was diagnosed to be having an anterior wall ST elevation MI. We did primary angioplasty, LAD was culprit lesion, and the patient had a good result. And after about 2 days in ICU, made a quick recovery, and slowly he was shifted out. He was discharged on UL antiplatelet statins, beta blockers. His echo at the time of discharge, he had injection fraction of 38%. Hemodynamically stable, pulse rate of around 80. We wanted to titrate the beta blockers, started on AC inhibitors and antiplatelet, statin, AC inhibitor, beta blocker, nitrates, and he was discharged with all the disease modifying and control of diabetes as well. So this patient who comes to follow up after 1 week, what should be the discharge advice to this patient in addition to the medication? Obviously, they have a lot of questions in relation to activities, apprehension about climbing stairs, and all those things. So, regarding the so-called rehabilitative work or going back to the lifestyle, what other instructions would you give to these patients before they go home for a typical cardiac patient? Anup, your thoughts on this?
So Praneeth, actually, my point of contention starts from the inpatient service know that most of our post-MI patients, we don't discharge them from ICU. We actually get them to a regular general ward. We want them to be a little bit active and see how they do. The whole premise of getting them to a general ward is to start the so-called phase 1 rehabilitation, which is a structured, low-intense program for a better, more lack of formal setup or a service. A good word to explain. We end up just telling the patient, okay, walk around the room, and if you're feeling okay, that is good enough. You go after that. But technically, that is the time when we do the phase 1 rehab, and then based upon that, I get the confidence of this. I can send this patient to a phase 2 rehab. These are the patients who come for a follow-up after a week, and based upon how things have been, then you should technically do a phase 2 rehab at that time. And you asked about a lot of style instructions and everything is related to this phase 2 rehab. Truly speaking, I should instruct them a lot, but I end up in the visit because truly speaking, with our bandwidth, it is difficult to spend half an hour or an hour with the patient describing them all the lifestyle measures, all the apprehensions and everything, which patients truly deserve, but out of the setup. And this is where the rehabilitation comes, where it's not just about exercise, but also on and helping them to get back in shape. So truly speaking, on my follow-up, I tell them to go for a rehabilitation, but I'm able to kind of guide them further in this because of lack of a structured where I can direct them to. A lot of it is also practical aspect because patients want to be at home. They want to come to see a doctor, but they really don't want to invest a lot of time in talking about all this. They would rather message you or call you. Can I do this? Can I do that? A little bit of hesitation on both the sides. We both have to be sharing the blame for it. I don't think in this particular aspect, very good service to my patients when they come for a 1 week follow-up. And that is where I think the discussion is going in terms of what we think we should do and how we can do it. So that is my take on it, Praneeth, and let us see what his thoughts are.
Yeah, agree with whatever you said. So probably whenever we talk about cardiac rehabilitation, the thought usually comes at the time of discharge when we are ready to send the patient, is when equally patients do ask about these questions, and equally that is where we think about talking about rehabilitation and all those things. But as you rightly said, the thought process of rehabilitation should be begin at ICU. That was probably my follow-up question to you, that when should we get started. And yeah, your point is valid that the phase 1 cardiac rehabilitation should begin in ICU, should be extended to the ward, and it should be a detailed discussion with the patient, and a quality rehab program should be sent in. So we'll take few other thoughts before we take comments from our guests. We have Dr. Chandramukhi with us, who is a consultant cardiologist working with me at Care Banjara. Madam, what are your thoughts on cardiac rehabilitation, and what are the challenges that you face in providing rehabilitation services or advices to your patients?
Hello, good evening, everybody. So, as you said, the rehabilitation will start right from the ICCU. When we advise the patient to lead a healthy lifestyle, like if the patient is having some risk factors, as you told, in this case, the patient was a smoker. So, immediately after we shift the patient to like ICU after primary PCI, then when we go for evening rounds, we tell them that smoking is one of the risk factors which made him land with this situation, and it is advisable that he should quit smoking. This comes regarding the healthy lifestyle, and then other important things also regarding diet and those things we tell them at the time of the discharge. Then, as you said, we mobilize the patient on the day 2 within the ICU. We make them sit in the chair and we monitor their activities. Then we shift them to ward, make them move around the room, and then if they are comfortable, they are not having any symptom. If the patient is not having symptoms, then at the time of discharge, we tell them that slowly they have to go back to their normal activities, but it has to be done in a graded manner. Like slowly, they have to start with a routine walk, not at a normal pace. Then they not at a like a brisk walking. They have to start with a normal pace and with whatever comfortable limit they have to do the things, and then later on slowly they have to increase the duration and the speed of the exercise or walking, whatever it is. But as you said, we don't have any like dedicated rehabilitation program for these patients, and in the OPD, when the patient comes back to with follow-up, we are short of time, we are busy with some other patients, and we don't have proper guidance for these patients regarding the rehabilitation. So if you have such a facility, then it will be very good for the patient and for us also. Thank you, Praneeth.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So quickly we'll move forward. I will take comments from Dr. Priya. So, Dr. Priya, can you tell us what are your thoughts on how a rehabilitative Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me? Priya here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, no, I think I lost Praneeth for a bit. So anyway, I'm audible, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Nice to meet everybody on the huddle session again. And thanks for inviting me. Yes, it's a very interesting and very common scenario that we see these days. Younger and younger patients coming with severe coronary artery disease requiring immediate revascularization quite often. So either in the form of PCI, as you just mentioned, or bypass surgery. So what is the latest in the cardiac rehab front is it is recognized as class 1 level A indication for as a treatment option for all eligible patients with coronary artery disease and even with heart failure. So we have a young middle-aged patient, I would say 50-year male with severe, I think you mentioned LAD disease, so single vessel disease, revascularized, but with multiple risk factors as well as moderate heart failure at the time of discharge. So here is an individual who has a very long and productive life ahead of him, and it has been proven that comprehensive cardiac rehabilitation, that is involving a multidisciplinary team, that is in addition to the rehab physician, definitely a cardiopulmonary physiotherapist, a dietitian with expertise in this area, as well as a psychologist with expertise in behavioral cardiology. So this kind of a team is what is required to address the needs and the requirements of these patients in order to prevent future complications, rehospitalizations, as well as to improve their quality of life. So we have very solid evidence that these programs work in the West, and in my experience of running rehab programs in India for the last 6 years, we have also gained some good evidence that it works well in our population. Provided we make some small changes and modify the international guidelines to suit our population. So we have very outlook, and I think the way forward is to make sure all coronary artery disease patients and all eligible patients with cardiovascular diseases, multiple cardiovascular diseases, even including heart transplantation these days, are proven to be benefited from scientifically based evidence program. So I think we have to think in those lines. Online programs are now available, especially in COVID times. It's recognized to be a risk to be calling these patients in for frequent sessions, but online programs, that is home-based programs, do work almost as good as in-person programs. So that's briefly my take on this. Thank you, Anup. Thank you, Praneeth.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. You well summarized the need for rehabilitation and the importance of cardiac rehabilitation. We'll take opinion from Dr. Vijay. Dr. Vijay, if this patient who is acute interval MI underwent angioplasty with an EF of 38% at the time of discharge. Probably if he was supposed to come to you, how would you look at this patient and how would you provide the so-called cardiac rehabilitation to this patient?
Thank you, sir. Hello, everyone. This is Vijay. Very good evening to everyone.
Vijay, your voice is a bit low. Can you be a bit louder?
Yeah. Am I audible now, sir?
Slightly better, but still we could hear you low.
Just a second. Now, am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes, nice.
Yeah. Good evening, all. Thank you, Dr. Praneeth, sir, inviting us for this meetup. As mentioned by Dr. Praneeth, sir, the case summary, if this kind of, this patient comes to us for a initial assessment or initial advice of cardiac rehabilitation, what would actually trigger my mind is low ejection fraction, which is at 38%. And then when we talk about loading his exercise training, that is making him understand fundamentally the challenges that what we face as a physiotherapist or cardiac rehabilitation professionals is belief system. They don't really believe that cardiac rehabilitation is also a co-partner in, curing their or maintaining their cardiac volumes. So in that context, what we actually feel is cardiac rehabilitation itself is a physician-directed program. So the belief system have to be established from the cardiologist himself, saying that medications are important, and then the cardiac rehabilitation is equally important in maintaining his surgery, whatever the procedure he has undergone. Once this kind of a patient comes to our cardiac rehabilitation setup, what we would do is initially we test him for his functional levels. This patient, when we look at his goals, will be attending his quality of life issues like attending his activities of daily living. So we'll assess him through a serial of tests like 6 minutes walk test and then a few other breath tests. Basing on these results, we'll program his initial phase 1 cardiac rehabilitation, which actually includes empowering his initial going back to lifestyle kind of stuff. Later, when he adheres to this program of phase 1 cardiac rehabilitation, then we'll quickly move him to phase 2. The challenge in Indian context, patients who has underwent some therapies or revascularization procedures in India is not just attending the cardiac rehabilitation consultation itself, but to the great extent is that adhering to the program when they go back to home actually. So I again quote the same thing: the belief system have to be established from that should come from the cardiologist who is actually treating him. That gives him a lot of trust on us actually, because cardiac rehabilitation program awareness itself is not much in Indian context patients. When I say a patient who has undergone some procedure or he is on some kind of revascularization procedure, after revascularization procedure, he will hesitate to walk or he will hesitate to improve his improve his walking patterns or move actually from the bed. There are patients when we spoke to them, they said post discharge they have been on the bed for last 3-4 months. So that decreases their definitely cardiac reserve as well as their general muscle deconditioning will happen. I think a large role was played by cardiologist himself, the physician, which if he can direct us, giving us the intensities, giving us the sensibilities, how we can actually take from post ICU, that will be a great beginning for the patient as well.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Vijay. I get the point of stressing upon the fact of cardiologists themselves impressing or prescribing a cardiac rehabilitation program, which goes a long way in getting the compliance of the patient. I agree with the point that you raised. Anup, you have your hand raised. You have anything to share?
Yeah, I want to ask an open question to particularly to my guests, but also to the cardiologist in the audience. Like I personally do believe that this thing is very helpful, but there is a lot of, I would say, resistance from both the doctors as well as the patients. While I understand that the onus is to a great degree on the treating doctor to emphasize that this is equally important, at times we find ourselves, in fact, not at times, majority of the times we find ourselves, other than giving data that this research proves that this works and all this, we are not able to work with the patient on the practical aspect of it. The practical aspect mostly relates to how will I go there, how frequently will I need to go there, what all services are going to provide, can I do the same thing at home, what supervision do they offer, what is that extra value addition that I'm going to get when I go to those centers rather than coming, and how frequently do I need to do, how practical it is and all this. So to my guests and to the audience as well who drive this point to the patients, if you could just share with us what are your tips and tricks that you tell to your patients, and what are the questions we can answer to these patients to say, this is how you do it, this is how you work around. Typically what happens, like I'll give you a scenario, typically what happens is you have a person in their, let's say, 50s who had an MI, and they're in their home, they have a spouse, and they have kids who are probably working or going to higher level college. So there is a lot of these practical issues going on and whatnot. So I think we need a lot of help in terms of how to talk to the patient with this particular regard. So long question, I hope we can get some discussion on this. Yeah, Dr. Vijay, do you want to add something to this?
I wanted to answer, sir.
Yes, please.
I worked in a hospital called Co-Club Hospitals in Mumbai. In line with your question, what actually we used to practice is we used to organize something called support groups. Actually, we used to gather patients who are at least near similar diagnosis and near similar conditions, and we used to involve all the core component contributors in cardiac rehabilitation, like that is physician to physiotherapist to occupational therapist, dietitian, psychologist. And then we used to ask the patient to come with the attenders, and then we used to ask them free open forum discussion. So that's when they actually come out a lot, and then because the variability in following this program is so high. As you said, the lifestyle they have presently to the attenders who are actually taking care of them will have a great variability from family to family. So that discussions actually empower the program itself, actually. Support group meetings, as well as Madam was mentioning about online consultations, actually empower and strengthen the program as a continuum, as their part of their management.
If I may add.
Yes, Dr. Priya, please go ahead.
Yeah, please, yeah. Very nice to hear Vijay's comments as well. Am I audible? Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, we are audible.
Okay, great. So you rightly pointed out that the initial part of the initiating somebody in a cardiac rehab program takes some amount of explaining to them. So this is ideally done by their primary cardiologist, their primary physician, or their cardiothoracic surgeon. So as again, they also need to be aware that cardiac rehabilitation, what are the latest advances in that and what are the benefits. And the second point is in our setup, in the cultural setup that we are in, the family members, that is either the grown-up kids or the partners or the closest relatives, the caretakers, actually play a very big role in the success of a cardiac rehab program of the patient. So in fact, we have had a lot of experience where all our education programs sessions, as well as the the exercise sessions, are attended by the close family members, and in many occasions the grown-up kids or the spouse who has already some risk factors, cardiovascular risk factors, signs up for a primary prevention program. So this is extremely important in our setup, because cardiac rehabilitation is already after the event has occurred, right? If we can have an influence on the immediate family members who are already at a high risk for CVD, and if we can inculcate this heart healthy lifestyle in them. So that is what we have also shown in our earlier study, that both in the primary prevention group and in the secondary prevention group, there are some significant changes in terms of risk factors as well as clinical parameters. So yes, the family members play a big role, and we have to take them into the process as well. Thanks.
May I add?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Sanup has put up the very valid question or very valid point, resistance, and especially in case of patients' resistance, there is a high need of psychological intervention for a person to be in a hospital for quite a time, and when he is out of it, so thinking of a rehab and all the things, like he would be under a psychological distress. So there is a high prevalence between mental and physical illness like depression and anxiety, and especially post operation, some people are likely even to develop PTSD. So I think their psychoeducation to the patient as well as the family members is very important. And to as Priya ma'am said, rightly said, families in an Indian culture play a very valid role, because the lifestyle changes, when we talk about it, any change or any adaptation needs a long-term intervention. So we can adapt, but relapse in such are very often happening. So it is not just the patient who has to undergo. The family members around him are also playing a vital role in helping him adapt to the lifestyle changes. And even there is a modifications in their own home. So I would say psychoeducation and also the psychosocial interventions is one of vital role in a cardiac rehab, because we focus even on cognitive restructuring and the behavioral risk factors that are likely to happen post the operation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, actually, I'll come back to you. I have a few questions for you. I will come back to you. I want to bring in Dr. Trishula. Dr. Trishula works at CARE. Dr. Trishula, I have few particular questions, and then I also want to get your insight about this. My particular question to you is, because you and me both share the same workspace, how do you see in terms of patients being managed at CARE with regards to post-MI cardiac rehabilitation, both inpatient and outpatient? What kind of challenges you think we are facing? Because as from the clinician side, I can vouch for you that for various reasons, we find it very difficult, while we want it, but we find it very difficult to instill this into the patient's practice. I told you hesitation, practicality, and whatnot. So if you could just give us an overview of what we do in CARE, what we should be doing, and then your thoughts on this topic. Dr. Trishula.
Thank you so much for having me here. Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Anup sir, for this question. Yes, we do have a lot of patients coming in for our outpatient and inpatient setup as well. I would say the problem with the patients and their attenders is basically they do not have a proper awareness about physiotherapy. They do not know what exactly physiotherapy is and what the importance of it is. So from the clinician side, if I would ask something, it's just that if you could pre-operatively just tell the patients and their attenders, or basically educate them that they probably have to have some kind of a physical activity. They have to involve with their patients, and also tell them that it is important that they have to go through it. Because if a patient is probably not going through it, then it will be difficult for them to cope up with all the things happen. Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible. Please continue.
Yes. So patients that come to us for the OP, if I talk about the outpatient setting, all they basically tell us that they do not come as soon as you send them, sir. First thing. I have a lot of patients who come to me after 3 or 4 weeks. It's not like whenever they are coming to your first follow-up, you write them that they have to go through physiotherapy, but they don't usually drop in. They think they do not have an idea what exactly is physiotherapy. So giving the patient an awareness about what will happen is probably something which will help them. That is what I would ask from your side. And yes, we have a really good support from you. Yes, you do send patients for cardiac rehabilitation. thing is because they do not have an awareness, the patient's attenders are not following up with you properly, they do not come to us. So that's where the patients are actually lacking when it comes to cardiac rehabilitation. So if as a clinician, if you could just tell them that it is important, or maybe just give, if they do not want to drop in, we can arrange some support group as Vijay sir and Priya madam told. We can have some online consultations, and we can, primary healthcare team is actually important when it comes to all of this. So because yes, people do directly drop into physiotherapy department for the rehabilitation, but when it comes from a clinician, from a surgeon, it actually adds up.
Ma'am, one more question. I'm sure you are seeing patients in the hospital itself as they are recovering, typically day 2, day 3 of their MI. Do you think those patients are more likely to follow up with you in the rehabilitation program, or it really doesn't matter whether you see them in the inpatient first?
No, if a patient, yeah, thank you. So if a patient is actually being under physiotherapy in ICU unit, they get that confidence. They get that, they know that they are actually gonna improve. But the problem here is with the problem here with the attender education. They attended things that if a patient is able to walk, that means they're able to walk and everything is well with them. So they probably don't get them here. And also sometimes it happens that the patient, as Vijay sir and Priya ma'am told, patients usually do not come to us because their support, the family support, they do not have. It's just that you people will be sending them here, and they're actually doing good with this ICU management, but they do not follow up. So once they do not follow up, they probably deteriorate in their condition.
Thank you, Dr. Trishla. Dr. Sai Vittal, if I can just ask your opinion about this particular thing. I hope you are able to hear me. Sir, there is a very practical problem. Now, we talk about these academics and we talk about what should be done, but patients who come for post-MI follow-up, they ask whether they should repay the visit fee because they should be getting a visit free or whatnot, and that 600 or 800 rupees, they are trying to figure out whether it is worth or not. Not all the patients, but a good portion of them. How do you see, and also because transport is a problem, they already are getting a lot of pharmaceuticals, which is adding cost burden to them. How do you see this cardiac rehabilitation, which patients and often doctors also think as a optional entity? How do you practice in your life? And if you could give us some tips and tricks of how you manage. Dr. Sai Vittal, if you could unmute yourself, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening to you, sir, and also the excellent gathering from outstation. We are learning many new things. Actually, the best thing, as you have already told, that it starts at the time of the discharge of the patient itself. Pre-discharge, we should sow the seeds of this rehabilitation. And as already these points have been told, sir, that the comorbidities have to be dealt with, especially smoking, which can, there is a thing, and the adherence to drugs, that always it's a part, and we have to involve the family, as Madam has already highlighted that. And the thing is, we have to actually start grading the exercises, gradually improving it. Actually, as I have told, it's only in theory we read that a pre-discharge TMT, or after 1 or 2 months we have to do a submaximal TMT, but we never do it. And today we learned new thing about 6-minute walking test, which usually we do not do. We have to pick up and improvise, and actually involving the patient, and grading, gradually increasing his exercise tolerance is only what we have to do. That's what I think is sufficient.
Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Vijay, I'm going to ask your opinion. Priya, madam, I'm going to get back to you in a second. Dr. Vijay, so these kind of patients, when they come to you, or when we are trying to get these patients, we are talking about, if I may say, evidence-based care. And I know that many of the times we don't we don't kind of fit into that, but we're trying to improvise on it. The so-called evidence-based care. I remember early on, I used to send my patients for cardiac rehabilitation. And in my first month follow-up, when they would come, they would proudly say that they're consuming 2 teaspoons of coconut oil every day because that is what the cardiac rehabilitation doctor told them. Now, yeah. I may or may not agree with coconut oil, but certainly this is not an evidence-based practice. And I believe while some level of resistance is there, some level of conflict is also there in terms of what I am advising, because no matter what cardiac rehabilitation advice is, patients will come to me and ask, what should I eat or what should I do? And sometimes there becomes a difference in opinion. Sometimes there becomes what I think is right or what somebody else thinks is right. How do we resolve these things out? And do you think something like this disconnect even exists? And if you do think it exists, how do we resolve it? Dr. Vijay.
Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir? Hello?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, you are audible. Yeah, Dr.
So, as you said, sir, there is a lot of evidence is evolving in the field of cardiac rehabilitation. Clearly, there is, as Madam was saying, there is class 1 evidence, a lot of RCDs and meta-analysis, systemic reviews are getting published. The fundamental when a person asks me, I am actually doing this kind of practices, which are kind of an alternative medicine practices, having coconut oil, doing, having this food, doing that kind of a diet and all. I think there should be a conscious system in place and then between the team members of cardiac rehabilitation. There are n number of AV-CVPR guidelines evolving year after the year, strengthening the practice models in cardiac rehabilitation. Particularly when we phase out phase 1 rehabilitation, when we organize a support group system in any given cardiac center, most of these alternative practices, like as you said, I am having this much of oil, I am having this kind of practices. And I have heard someone telling me I am doing a cardiac rehab yoga kind of a stuff. Yoga is definitely better, but when to load this kind of exercises on patient is so important. So what I feel, when there is an evolved system between core components of cardiac rehabilitation, and there are ample guidelines where we can infuse and then we give a handout kind of a stuff when the patient is getting discharged as a frequently answered questions. That would solve most of the problems. And as I have to repeat this again, most of the times proper education, proper connection with the patients and the patient family will create a lot of these alternative medical practices, So if this kind of a patient comes to me and says, I'm following these kind of methods where someone outside, someone quack has prescribed me, this stuff is working with my known relative, or this stuff is working with my known friend, that would how would dealt with them is I would sit with them for 5 to 10 minutes, make them understand what actually a cardiac and what is a evidence center. And many of the times the fine tuning between a cardiologist and cardiac rehabilitation team will actually improvise the practice methods. Fundamentally, establishing a practices. When I also worked in care hospitals, I'll just give a scenario, a very small scenario. When we are doing cardiac rehabilitation at Care Hospital, Banjara Hills, we had someone called Dr. Narsimhan sir. We have someone who was so interested, but we don't have space and equipment. So that's when we started cardiac rehabilitation program in cath lab itself. So as soon as the procedure is done, within no time, I called and I was introduced by the cardiologist, and giving the confidence that he is also going to be a part of your recovery journey, given the patient of confidence, and then the conflicts like following these kind of methodologies will be greatly resolved. Unlike they see me after 2 months or 3 months, the other physiotherapist was mentioning now. So greater connect, will create greater adherence of the program, greater adherence of the guidelines. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Tharana, I wanted to ask you a question, Dr. Tharana Sethupathi. You talked about anxiety, depressions, and all this that happens in this patient. Do you know, or do you think if these kind of services we should be starting inpatient itself when the patient is admitted and trying to recover, or do you think at that time they have too much to think in their plate and psychotherapy is probably not one of the things they are thinking? How do you see both academically as well as practically?
So like initially, like given taken the Indian population, psychotherapy at initial stages would be resistant to those population because they would consider, okay, we have physical problem and let me focus on that. This is all secondary. So that kind of responses are quite common. But actually, like academically speaking, that is more needed because at that point they are all as I said, the psychological distress is high. So there, the psychological intervention is needed, and in the inpatient care, I think from there itself it starts. And so when I say psychological intervention, it is not just to the patient, it is to the family members as well. So there is a bridge between the care, I mean medical care system and the patient, right? So to bridge that, I think the psychological aspect plays a very very major role because they understand medical terminologies, or they might be going through a lot of stuff. So to have the emotional and the personal touch, family psycho education has academically it is needed, foremost needed.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Dr. Priya, I'm going to come to you. I would like you to share your thoughts, but I have particular questions for you. I gathered in the discussion few of them. Number one, do we have any sort of Indian guidelines in terms of how a cardiac rehabilitation should be Indianized, taking our practical issues into consideration? That is number one. Number two, psychotherapy, behavioral therapy, and how to do attendant education and all this. How can we achieve it online the best? Do you think it works? If it works, how do we achieve it? And what kind of financial burden we are talking about to the patients and the family? And whatever thoughts you have, Dr. Priya.
Yeah, very, very important and difficult questions, Anup. But to begin with, I think your first question was on the any Indian guidelines. I don't think there are any specific Indian guidelines yet, but the good thing is the BACPR, that is the British, as well as the American Association of Cardiopulmonary Rehab, AACPR. So both of these are, pretty similar, and of course, the core components are. It can be directly and it's directly applicable to our population. So instead of, I think, putting in our efforts, it might be more to set up a kind of a national network. I think there have been initial efforts to do that of cardiac rehab teams in India, but it's not yet been extremely successful. So we need to have this all tertiary care hospitals, joining hands to make this available in the centers, in the hospitals itself. Of course, outpatient cardiac rehab centers are also extremely effective. And like, for instance, I run the Cardiac Wellness Institute in Chennai, which is an outpatient rehab center. And one important advantage of that is the patient doesn't feel like, they don't have to have the hospital, visiting the hospital frequently. They feel that it's more in the community and they don't feel like it's a kind of emergency care or something that they're getting. So that's one thing. But as you said, as I said, there are no guidelines, but I don't think we need guidelines, but we need to work together as cardiac rehab teams to establish questionnaires that are pertinent for our population. For instance, you asked about coconut oil, right? Even not just quarks, just to, argue with Vijay on a light note. It's not just them, it's even, for instance, cardiologists and diabetologists who have been promoting these kind of specific oils, which have been, there's some evidence that they are extremely harmful. And there are some specific diets like the keto and paleo diet, which have been forcefully promoted by diabetologists themselves. And we know that there are definitely strong cardiovascular as well as renal side effects of these fat diets and all that. So what I'm trying to implicate is that even among the medical fraternity, there's a lot of controversy existing in a few of these areas. And that's why we try to do these yearly or at least biannual kind of update meetings and conferences to get the core healthcare providers aligned. And the second question about psychosocial aspects, yes, they are very important and they have to be integrated into the rehab program itself, and it can be provided online. So initially these are done as group programs or group sessions, as in stress management sessions or behavior modification sessions. And for those who are more at risk for things like depression or anxiety disorders, if we can identify those patients, then one-on-one sessions, whether it's online or in person, they're both quite effective these days, because when it's one-on-one and if it's a video kind of a consultation, the patient already has, if the patient already has a rapport with the counseling psychologist or the psychotherapist, then the effect is quite good. And I think the third part of your question was about the financial aspects. I think in the medium to long term, we definitely need the health reimbursement, that is the insurance, to be covering this kind of services, as it is currently done, for example, in the US and several European. But at the moment, I doubt if any other state other than Maharashtra is providing cardiac rehab as part of their health insurance coverage. But yes, we have work to be done in that area, and at least in the meantime, we should keep our cardiac rehab costs low for the patient and try to have a sliding scale where affordability should not be a reason for, lack of affordability should not be a reason for actually not attending and benefiting from these programs. Thanks, Anup. Thanks again.
Praneeth, I'm going to ask you a question. With all the guests that we had, we talked about consistently attendant education, and we talk about group meetings, and we talked about psychotherapy, and we talked about instilling the trust and how it should be physician driven. My question to you is, at any given time in the hospital, we have got at least 3 or 4 MI patients recovering at some stage on day 2, day 3, day 4, something of that sort. Is it possible to get so-called a group therapy inpatient? Is it too much to ask? Is there a patient privacy issue? Is it possible to get bed number 4, bed number 8, and 634? Can we get all 3 together in one room along with their attendants and have a therapy session? Is it possible? Am I thinking too much?
I think it is possible. It's probably the intent that is important, and if we believe in cardiac rehabilitation, that it's going to make a difference, the point which Dr. Vijay was stressing upon, and if we think that if we have to make it, I think we should be in a position to do this. Why not? I think it can be done.
And what do you think of patient privacy? You think that we are exposing patients to other people in terms of why should one person know that the other person is also admitted with this problem? Or do you think that is a Western problem that is not relevant in Indian context?
It's probably an informed consent, or we inform them about what we are doing it, and once they believe that all of them are sharing the same heart problem, and this is it's like a group session where we will be discussing about various aspects of health related and or heart related issues, and we are going to discuss these things. Probably it's going to make a difference. I think it's should not be more of a practical issue, but more about our intent to do it and make it possible. I think it's doable.
Dr. Vijay, your hand is up. You have something to add, and while you add that, I'm also going to ask you the same question. Do you think IP group meeting is possible?
Definitely, sir. I think first part of it, privacy issues are not going to definitely happen, because here we actually going to engage patients with similar kind of conditions, and then they'll actually get connected more in terms of their thoughts and their questions. So we need to promote them more about the questions and confusions. So in that way, actually getting them into a group as support group actually promotes their confidence in actually continuing this. Rather, I mean, anything called privacy issues, because we explain them what will happen in support group meeting, and then we are not sure that their habits or their like smoking, alcoholism, nothing like that in person. Whether we actually address in a so actually getting them involved in that support group really enhances their strength of confidence on the program. That's what I feel.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vijay. Dr. Trishula, if you could very quickly, I hope Dr. Trishula, you are here. Yeah. Dr. Trishula, if you could very quickly answer this question. Patient who come in for a phase 2 rehab, how frequently do they need to come per week? If you could give us an idea how many hours they spend and what kind of transport services they need, if you could just highlight these two things.
Okay, thank you. First up, the phase 2 rehab usually is in the outpatient center, which usually takes 3 to 6 weeks for the patient. So if the patient has done a good physiotherapy pre-operative, their ICU rehab, which is the phase 1 rehab, becomes easy for us. And if the patient has done a good phase 1 rehab, then phase 2 rehab is actually easy for us. So our frequency of calling the patients per week is actually 5 days. So which includes a session of almost 30 minutes, I would say, mostly 30 minutes of main exercise program, which includes 10 warm-up, 10 to 15 minutes of warm-up. Then there's a main exercise program for 20 minutes to 30 minutes, owing to the patient's capacity and his abilities and disabilities, if they have any ortho-related issue or any other issue. And then there's a cool-down period of 10 minutes. And then that's it. So basically, this 30 to 40 minutes of session is enough for a patient. So per week, if a patient could drop in just 5 days per week, it is actually okay. But sometimes if they have travel issues or something, at least thrice a week maybe. That will help them a lot.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Somaraju sir, if my voice is audible, I want to get your opinion on this cardiac rehabilitation. I know your patients very aggressively used to go for cardiac rehabilitation, but here a lot of practical issues we are discussing, particularly our resistance of trying to convince patient that it is important, and also patient's reluctance in terms of whether it actually helps, because they're walking at home, might well walk at home rather than coming. And then I have a very particular question for you. A patient post-MI after 2 weeks, we are telling them to come to rehab center. They don't have anybody to drop them. So they ask, can we take a cab and come over here? Like, how comfortable all these things are for us? And your take on rehab as a general, sir.
Anup, thanks for asking me. Actually, I joined slightly late, but some of it I heard actually. But one thing I just wanted to convey is cardiac rehabilitation is not just a few exercises and a few advices on, say, psychological counseling, etc. It involves the wholeness of medical evaluation, supervised exercise, cardiac risk factor modification, education, counseling, in all aspects, and how they conduct themselves for the rest of their lives. And it is not just one of us can do it, and it's a teamwork. And hopefully, Dr. Praneeth, who and me who work together, probably remembers and probably mentioned that we have a psychologist in our outpatient and inpatient team, and she was trained in William James College of Psychology in Harvard. And she worked with us and she contributed significantly to patients who come to us. Most of the patients who come to the outpatient went through them. And why I mentioned a psychologist is that every major department in medicine or any specialty should have a psychologist as part of their team, both inpatient and outpatient. And it has to start from the time of admission to follow later. And a patient from acute care ACS situation to chronic situation, they have a significant role to play. And also a nutritionist should be part of the team. Having said that, say a nurse who is well trained with you in the inpatient and outpatient should be Suppose somebody, we ask them just stop smoking, they listen to you for a while and then they start again. But continuously following them up, either they come when by intervals or a telephone follow-up of some kind, and one of the members of the team, I will say none of us alone, say a nurse or one of the members of the team in the outpatient or inpatient should be calling them and doing it. It's a lifelong process. And it is not just say a room given for cardiac rehabilitation. It is the total management of the patient and all of us together, and addressing all the issues related to the rest of their lives. It is not just one component of just exercise. Exercise is only one component. I just want you to be aware of the wholeness of the program.
Well, sir, post-MI patients taking a cab to come to a rehab center. What is your thoughts on that?
We had the habit, right from Nizam's days or even earlier, of patients who can't afford to travel, we send our own vehicles and get them, either in groups or individually, the need. An institution who is committed to care of the patient should go out of the way to help them. They can't come to go. There is what is called home care. There is what is called home care cardiac rehabilitation. How you do that, either tele or physically, it's up to you as a team.
And sir, your thoughts on the inpatient group meeting. Do you think it is feasible where we collect patients admitted and give them inpatient counseling sessions and rehabilitation sessions?
We were doing it for some time. Somehow it fell apart later. And it has to be done. That is a good thing to do.
I have one last question, and this is for Dr. Priya. And after that, if anybody has any thoughts, they can share. Dr. Priya, I remember when I was in US at that time, there were a lot of development on Kinect-based exercises where you have that Wii or Microsoft Kinect motion detectors, which were kind of modified for physiotherapy sessions and for rehabilitation sessions. They used to have video games where you can load, and using Kinect, it will identify how much hand you're moving, how much leg you're moving, and then give a real-time feedback. Is something like this actually materialized? Do you know if something like this exists? And if yes, can we use it?
Yeah, hope I'm audible. Yes, good question, Anup. So the short answer is I don't think these kind of gaming-based programs or exercise programs are available in India or in this part of the world. Probably yes, they were introduced in the US, but not many studies have come out on their. It's going to be effective because it's a kind of a dance-like movement. It's moving the patient away from sedentary behavior and all that. But I'm not sure if any longer-term studies have come on that. But I know that long-distance monitoring in terms of telemonitoring and the chest strap-based devices and a few other devices for specifically cardiac rehab patients are being tried out. So these are for those, I think, patients who are more in the higher risk category for exercise-based rehab and who need more supervision, and especially if they're being on a home-based program, as just now Dr. Somaraju mentioned. So home-based cardiac rehab program is becoming almost the norm nowadays, because one thing is the COVID situation, and the second thing is to avoid all the logistics issues like travel and the need for a caretaker and other things to bring senior people to the rehab center. So then the balance will be between how to provide these long distance programs if they are in a high risk category. So there is a little bit of uncertainty there, but these monitoring devices are also coming up. So I think we have coming up with the necessary tools to be able to actually provide these programs for all the eligible patients. And the real bottlenecks are the referral from the doctors and, of course, the patient's willingness to take up a program of this nature, which globally it is an underutilized service. So if you see, most of the papers do end up saying that cardiac rehab is an underutilized service, even in the developed populations. But in a country like ours, where the impact of rehospitalization and repeat procedures is much higher in terms of burden on the patient, so message has to be conveyed upfront to them that a smaller cost in the beginning towards a proper rehab program is going to have much bigger benefits on their economic or their financial paying up later on in terms of rehospitalization. Hope I've answered your question. Thanks. Thanks, Anup.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Trishula or anybody, if you can answer this question, do we know any home-based rehab vendor? Do we have it at CARE? How can we order it? Anybody who is in Hyderabad or practices in Hyderabad can answer this question in the audience. Anyone who knows? Dr. Trishula, do you know any such home-based care that we can, home-based rehab care that we can take services from?
Thank you, sir. Yes, we do from our side, from our outpatient center and inpatient center, we provide home services to patients with who are willing to get. But the problem or the biggest challenge that we have is at home we do not have all the equipments, as ma'am said, and we do not have a proper monitoring. So something goes wrong and the attenders usually either stop it or they consult the cardiologist asking about it. And sometimes, yes, it does happen that they do not show up again, that they do not want it. They are into thinking, if a patient is able to walk, I do not think that I need more of it. So they either stop calling the physio at home, or else they do not show up at the outpatient department.
So I'm going to ask a question which is very contentious. It's an open question to all our guests and anybody around here. Do you think, and this is a contentious question I'm asking, I'm apologizing to begin with, do you think the onus of the patient meeting you for the first time is on the cardiologist, but once the patient meets you, then the onus to continue the patient with the therapy is on you in terms of adding value, in terms of patient's understanding that whatever you are offering is actually valuable and that I should continue? Do you think it is, I'm not shifting the goalpost, I'm not shifting the blame, I'm just saying that once the first meeting between a patient and a rehab provider happens, I think after that the onus is on the rehab provider to ensure that the services they are providing is valuable to the patient.
To answer that quickly, yes, I think it is the role or the responsibility of the rehab team. But again, or the most important thing, the message to the patient is that the rehab team and their cardiologist or this cardiothoracic surgeon is working together as a team. So in each and every follow-up, if they were to, recheck on how their rehab program is going, for instance, in our online program, we have these trackers which are referring cardiologists and cardiothoracic surgeons have, constant access to. So each and every patient of theirs that they're referring, they're able to see what is happening to them on a session-by-session basis. And this kind of a circling back will give, I think, the more confidence to the referring physicians, and also that gets communicated to the patient and their families as a single unit taking effort in improving the patient care and the quality of the patient's health.
Hello, Dr. Anup.
Yes, Dr. Hussain, please.
Yeah, I would just like to add a couple of points on this. So the first thing is properly educating the patient before the surgery. It is very, very, very important, because generally we see after post-surgery, if we ask a patient to do just a spirometer, so he won't be able to do a spirometer properly, or else if we teach them how to do proper breathing exercises also, because once the incision is made, so patient won't be able to take the pain. And the main important thing is to educate them before the surgery. Like the more we educate them, the better it is for the patient. And mostly what happens is in the family, for the patient, every person, every relative wants to become a doctor for the patient. And the biggest myth is, like, after cardiac surgery, you will not be able to do this, you will not be able to do that. So I would just suggest, like, we all, like cardiologists, cardiac surgeons, psychologists, physiotherapists, should come on a proper platform where we should encourage the patient, like cardiac surgery or the cardiac procedure, whatever you are doing, it is not to be bedridden or else to bed bound or else to stay at home. You're doing this procedure to make your life more better. So that type of counseling, and generally speaking on all this thing, the main important thing what I would suggest is, like, if the patient is coming to a rehab, the how better rehab we do, the how good we treat the patient. Generally what happened, patient follows up with the cardiologist every 15 days, a month. So we want the basic support from the cardiologist, like, nahin, you have to go to the physiotherapy. Cardiac rehabilitation plays always a very important role. So that sort of support, if we get from cardiologist and cardiac surgeon, we can really do great things in this.
Thank you so much, sir. We are 8:40, typically towards the end of the session. I invite session feedback from everyone, particularly our attendees, our guests. But because we are 10 minutes out, I'm going to skip the session today. If anybody has any other thoughts about this, it's an open discussion for the next 2 minutes. I'll take any inputs from the attendees, anything that you have to add. If not, then we'll have the closing comments from Dr. Praneeth. Anybody has anything else to add about this rehab? I know there are a lot of unanswered questions, and hopefully this kind of session serves the basic purpose, and that is triggering you to talk about cardiac rehabilitation every time when you see your patient, particularly those who are recovering from an MI. So hopefully these kind of sessions, they will trigger this thought every single time, and then it will push you to take one extra step and talk to patients, but first talk to yourself that this is something you should venture into. So hopefully that purpose this solves, and we did get some insight from our attendees as well. If nobody has any comments or any additional thoughts, I'll ask Dr. Praneeth to give the closing comments, and then we will be done. Dr. Praneeth.
Yeah. So firstly, thank you for the guests for today's session. Very insightful thoughts. This topic of cardiac rehabilitation, as we all understand, is extremely important, and the challenges of getting it happen are being very well brought up. We could know about the other side of the plate, about the physiotherapists and the role of the psychologists in the rehabilitation program, and the responsibilities as a cardiologist to promote the program and working together as a team so that the patient can get the best of the cardiac rehabilitation program. And yes, baby steps. We just need to get started, and as we go forward, we can strengthen the program. And I hope there should be many outpatient rehab centers being available for the patients with the COVID crisis and all, where patients are scared to come to hospitals. The outpatient cardiac rehab centers are probably the need of the hour, I think. And definitely a very good session where a lot of thoughts, a lot of points to learn and a lot of work to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Praneeth. Before I close, I'll just add 2 things which I do at the very end to tell the attendees that all the sessions are recorded and I upload them on podcast, and I'm slow at uploading to YouTube, but they will eventually pop up on YouTube as well. You can just search the Weekly Huddle and all the previous sessions will come. And second, that the link that you click today to join is the same link for all the future sessions as well. We do it every Wednesday at 7:30. And we would love to have you guys join us for future sessions as well. I thank all of you for your time and your participation and your input, particularly the guests for this evening. And I wish you good night, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Thank you all, and have a good day. Thank you, guys.